Why, hello there. Let's talk about last week, shall we? Cheers. Welcome back, everybody, to me doing the weekly navel-gazing. When I talk about all the books I read last week and all the books I plan to read this week and all the videos I made last week and all the stuff that I plan to make this week and you know the drill by now, is what I'm saying. And let's start with reading. I did not, in fact, read that much because, sometimes things just, don't pan out that way because of, stuff. But I did read, as I said, The Technology Trap, Capital, Labor, and Power in the Age of Automation by Carl Benedict Frey. And it's not a good book. Turns out it's not a good book. I did learn some things from it and I can use it, but it was really, really frustrating. And there's a bunch of things in there where, if you actually quote Charles Murray of the bell curve and shit, in a book written in 2019, yeah, I might have some issues with you there as an author, even if you may be a professor in Oxford, because Charles fucking Murray is a racist piece of shit, to put it mildly. And that is the kind of thing that should impact your decision to quote him on, social science stuff at this point in time, because, not like his early work in the 80s or whatever, if you're an academic, publishing as an academic, you should take more care, is what I'm saying here. And that was really frustrating. Then a quick aside, using half a sentence to bash David Graeber's bullshit jobs, which, certainly not a perfect book, but the thesis is not that people don't like work. The thesis is that there are some jobs that people don't like. So going clearly bullshit jobs is wrong because people do often feel fulfilled by their jobs is not the kind of thing you should do because it's academically, it's bad faith is what it is. And then I found out that Carl Benedict Frey is in fact the Dieter Schwarz associate professor of AI and work in AI at some institute in Oxford. And if you know who Dieter Schwarz is, he's the boss of it. He's the owner of Lidl and Germany's richest billionaire, and does certainly have some very specific views on stuff. And if you have the professorship that is financed by that person, and you talk and praise Amazon's idea of using fully automated AI supermarkets, I'm not saying I'm detecting a conflict of interest there, but I'm saying I'm not going to trust your book, is what I'm saying, basically. So yeah, that sucked. However, I did read a really good book on AI, and that was Atlas of AI by Kate Crawford, which still is free on Audible in some regions until tomorrow, or maybe until the 7th of October. So if you have Audible and you want to read a really good book that introduces all the problems with artificial intelligence on the sort of global level when it comes to labor, when it comes to resource exploitation, when it comes to labor exploitation, when it comes to all the ways the current AI boom is destroying our planet and our lives without ever going into the specifics of technology, then this is really a good book that you should read. It will make you angry, is what I'm saying. But, that's kind of the point here. So I read that, and I did really enjoy that. Not enjoy that, but it was really helpful. And then I did read The Secular Enlightenment by Margaret C. Jacob. Margaret C. Jacob obviously also wrote The Radical Enlightenment, which is from the 1980s and sort of one of the early books rediscovering sort of the more fringe elements of Enlightenment history. So that was really interesting. And I wanted to read that one for a while, sort of as an backup to a possible reread of Terra Ignota by Ada Palmer, because I'm pretty sure Palmer has, in fact, read at least The Radical Enlightenment. So I did read that, and it's an interesting overview over some aspects of Enlightenment history that you might not be aware of if you haven't spent a lot of time reading books about the Enlightenment. So, I enjoyed it for that. It's not the deepest deep dive, but that's not what I was expecting, so, I'm fine with that. And that's all I read, because, time and stuff, and festivals and other stuff, so, yeah. What am I going to read this week? Well, I don't really know. Right now, I am reading Italian folk tales, which was edited, collected, and so forth by Italo Calvino, and I am enjoying that. It's just a collection of different folk tales from all kinds of places of Italy. A lot of them are really, really short. It's like Grimm's fairy tales, but for Italy, and well, slightly different because the way and approach is obviously different. And yeah, I'm having fun with that. I'll just learn a lot of how certain themes in folk tales are shifting over, depending on who's telling about it. You can get sort of elements in these stories that you recognize from some other fairy tale where they are slightly different, and so forth. But yeah, it's fun, is what I'm saying. Will anything come of that? Probably not. I just wanted to read that because reading more books written by Italo Calvino is always a good choice. And, sometimes even I make the right ones, right choices. Beyond that, I have no idea what I'll be reading because all the good books come out next week. By which I mean, on the 7th, there will be some really interesting books coming out. The most important one, of course, being Shadow Ticket by Thomas Pynchon. And I am going to read that as quickly as possible because it's a new Thomas Pynchon book. And I've not been waiting for one until I found out this one is coming because I was kind of expecting no more Pynchon to come out because, age and stuff. But, sometimes surprises happen, and I'm very excited for Shadow Ticket. At the same day, there's also another book coming out that I'm really excited about, and that is Gilded Rage, Elon Musk and the right shift or whatever of or right-wing radicalization of Silicon Valley, and by Jacob Silverman. Is that going to make me a very happy person? Probably not. Will it be an important and interesting book? Definitely yes. So I'm going to read that as well. There was another book coming out next week that I have completely forgotten which one it was. I should probably look that up again. Or it was another book that I thought about reading when it came out, so who knows. I might also do that. And of course next on the 7th there's also the release date of Enshittification by Cory Doctorow, and I backed that Kickstarter, and the audiobook will be delivered to me in either a download on Libro FM or as files that I can just get directly and do with whatever the fuck I want, and that is great. So I'm going to read Enshittification also very soon, which makes a lot of sense because it does tie in with the whole AI video project that I'm still working on, as does, of course, Gilded Rage. So those are things happening next week, so I'm kind of at this weird place where I'm I don't want to start a really big project until then, but I'm definitely going to read something because, reading, I guess. So we'll have to find out what I will read until then. If you have suggestions, you can always let me know. There's certainly books out there that I should read, so that might just happen. But then again, there's also more festival stuff happening, so who knows how much reading I will get in from Thursday on. But yeah, let me know what I should read if you feel like it. And yes, videos. I did make one. I recorded it twice because I wasn't happy with the first version, and I uploaded the second one. It is of course called Bullshit Reviews, a Theory, which is apparently too much for YouTube because it got restricted when it comes to advertisements. But then I figured, I tried the manual review thing because I figured I'm not saying anything that is against TOS, but apparently using the word bullshit is against TOS, or not at least, not terms of service, but is against the advertisement guidelines, which makes me wonder, what if I want to talk about the said David Graeber book called Bullshit Jobs, a Theory? Can I mention that in the title, or is that illegal? Who knows? I decided against changing the title because, you know what, it's not like I'm making a lot of money from these videos anyway, and I'd rather have the integrity of that title because that, that reference to the Graeber book was deliberate, and I think it makes sense within what I'm saying in that video, and I'm generally relatively happy with the video. It did for my channel, it did relatively well, numbers-wise, and it even got a couple of comments. I'm very happy for that. It got fewer comments than I was hoping for, but then again, it's the usual thing. I get very few comments on videos in general. I just have to live with that fact, and that's that. As I said, I'm happy with the results. I think I tried to make a really important point there. I hope it came across as, the thing that I was trying to do, explain why I think there's a problem with reviews, and not as, bashing people who do reviews, because I don't want to, I did not want to single out people who have made book reviews that I've got annoyed at, because that's a very different kind of thing. And I feel there's something, structurally wrong with the idea of doing spoiler-free reviews in particular, and I tried to do that justice, so that was the goal. I did record another video, and I wasn't really happy with it, so maybe, just maybe, I'll actually manage to record that in the next couple of days in a way that I am happy with, and that is something sort of talking about the difference between good books and important books and books that we like, favorite books, because I think there's a massive difference there, and we often conflate those three terms, and that I think is can be problematic. And I'm a fan of like a clarification or clear term use, because I think it helps with conversations. But we'll see if I feel comfortable about that or not. So that's all the videos I did. I promised you to do like a video where I do the whole poll for like the Christmas winter holiday thing. Yeah, I fucked that one up. I'm really sorry. I didn't put up the poll, and I did not record the video yet. I will try to do that tomorrow, by which I mean I will set up the poll, and then I'll make the video where I talk about like from the suggestions you made under the first poll and stuff that I wanted to do. I'll pick five series, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what they are and why I decided I think they are good choices, and then you can vote on those. That's going to happen tomorrow. I hope. I certainly promise. I'm just really, really bad at sticking to promises or sticking to plans. It's just like, a general thing. Which brings me, so like videos that will happen this week, probably. Well, I mean, this one, and possibly the other one that about like the difference between good and important and so forth, because what I just said, like the technology trap, I think, well, is it important in the grand scheme of things? Possibly not. I mean, who reads books like that? Probably not too many people, but I think I took something away from it that I can use in a way so it was useful to me, but it was definitely not a good book, and certainly not one of my favorite books, and that's just like nonfiction, and there's, the same thing can happen with fiction, and I feel it's important to talk about those kind of things. So, yeah, I'll try to make that video in one way or another. If something else comes up where I feel, hey, I should probably talk about that, then I might. Otherwise, no. Who knows? Just like a thing. And I was like thinking about that. Like yesterday, I went and watched a movie. I know, shocker. Was the first time in like years and years and years, and I did in fact watch One Battle After Another, and the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie based on Vineland by Thomas Pynchon, and I did enjoy it. I think it's a really, really good movie. I watched a YouTube video review in German, discussion in German, that claimed it is a really bad movie, and was wondering whether it is a political movie or not. And I it's sometimes I'm really mad at, fantasy, booktube and so forth, where everyone is talking about keeping politics out of fantasy and so forth. And I obviously think that it's impossible to keep politics out of like talking about any form of art. But it felt somewhat good to see that apparently movie discourse is at least as bad at this as book discourse. So I guess we're all just like bad at talking about politics. Who knows? Anyway, I really enjoyed it. I think if you want to watch a really interesting, fun movie, highly recommend watching One Battle After Another. Maybe I should reread Vineland, because it's been like almost a decade since I read Vineland, and maybe I should actually record a video about that, discussing Vineland. I'm always a bit hesitant talking about Thomas Pynchon novels, because it's, they are very complicated. I'm not like one of those lit bro kind of guys who only read like serious books that are also really manly and then talk for hours and hours about fucking David Foster Wallace or whatever. I'm not that kind of person, even though I enjoyed, I have read and appreciated what he did in Infinite Jest. But my point is, Thomas Pynchon novels are relatively complicated or complex in that they have a lot of shit going on. They are constantly sort of like pushing against like any form of like genre or conventions, literary conventions. They are packing references over references over references over references. So there is a lot going on, and there's always a very, they can be somewhat overwhelming in a lot of ways. And while I personally enjoyed that kind of book, I obviously also really enjoyed the Illuminatus trilogy by Robert Wilson, and there's certainly some parallels between some of the 70s based stuff that Pynchon wrote, like, Inherent Vice, or in this case Vineland, even though that's like in the 80s, and possibly also Crying of Lot 49, things like that, do certainly have things in common with the approach to writing or whatever that Shea and Wilson are picking. Obviously it's the other way around, with Shea and Wilson probably being influenced by Thomas Pynchon. But, I do personally enjoy that kind of writing, but I'm always hesitant when it comes to talking about it, because A, there's a lot you can get wrong about a book like that, or, well, can get wrong about it because, well, some things are obviously subjective, and I can, death of the author and all of that. And Thomas Pynchon has certainly made it easy to do death of the author with like not ever talking to anyone and so forth. But there's still, there's a lot of like academic conversation around Thomas Pynchon, things like that. So it's easier to get things wrong with a Thomas Pynchon book than it is, say, with I don't know, say Winnie the Pooh. It's easier to do that in a way that can be sort of like somewhat officially, like objectively sort of like litigated in a way that that goes beyond just personal opinions. In the same way that, say, like talking about some Umberto Eco novels can be difficult in that regard, because there's certainly parallels between Pynchon and Eco in some ways. Eco usually not going as far out when it comes to all the psychedelic elements and weirdness as Pynchon does, but certainly they use similar techniques oftentimes, and so yeah, it's always a bit more daunting, but it might be worth talking about Vineland, because I think it's like, compared to a lot of the big ones like Mason and Dixon or Gravity's Rainbow, it's relatively easy to read and relatively accessible and approachable, and maybe it might just be one that might be a good entrance point for some of you to read a Thomas Pynchon novel if you feel like it. Certainly a fun one. And then you can go and watch one battle after another and see how the movie has changed things from the book, which it has, massively. But, just an idea. Maybe I'll do that. Who knows? And it would be nice to read like another Thomas Pynchon novel before going back to... or going back is wrong, but before starting Shadow Ticket, because I'm definitely going to talk about Shadow Ticket. So yeah, that's something I've been thinking about. But who knows? It's all wide open at the moment. And as you can guess from like not having talked about the AI video, that's kind of what I have decided. Like now with all the delays and everything, and me going to the Keep It True Rising festival this weekend on Thursday, I guess. I have decided that I'll just wait until the 7th. I'll read Gilded Rage and I'll read Enshittification, and I can use those as additional material in the AI video, because I think that right-wing shift is really important in some of the AI politics, with people like Elon Musk and Mark Andreessen and Peter Thiel being so heavily involved in it. It makes sense to pay attention to that, and so I'm going to do that. I'm very much frustrated that YouTube keeps showing me the fact that Professor Dave has done a discussion about AI and the future of humanity with some dude, and I'm like, is this going to make me really, really angry? Should I watch this? Should I ignore this? And I'm really bad at like ignoring things that I know will make me angry. I try to do more of that, because it's not usually worthwhile to do that, because I'll just get mad. Maybe I'll make a video about it, but usually I just get mad, and I'm already mad enough, so why do that, right? So I'm trying to figure out where to go with that, but so the AI video will happen from next week onwards, I guess. And I'm really hoping to get through it like in a relatively short time with recording it, and moving on to other things. And, that's like one of those things I was recently looking at and thinking about, to bring it back to like the video about, the bullshit jobs, or in this case, bullshit reviews thing. I've often spoken about that, like how I sometimes struggle with figuring out where I fit in a lot of ways. And that's just something that just keeps on going, where I'm like, some days I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'll just do whatever I want. And if this is a book channel, then it's a very weird one. And if it's not a book channel that also talks about books, then it's that, living with the consequences, because clearly that's the only thing I can do. But like sometimes you do sort of like look at numbers and things, and I see the fact that like, this channel is obviously growing incredibly slowly, because I'm an obnoxious kind of person, I guess. But it is slowly growing, but the views are very, very low compared to, say, the number of subscribers, which means that there's either a lot of people that have subscribed and never unsubscribed, even though I'm not doing the thing they subscribe for, or something else is going on. But usually when you see like channels in that size, right, like they usually have something like around like 10%. If you have like views that are about 10% of your subscriber count, that I think is usually standard for people that post videos, publish videos like multiple times per week or whatever, right? The numbers shift over time in all kinds of ways, but that's usually what I see when I look at other creators, even like within like bookish spaces or whatever. And yeah, my videos are not doing that usually. very rarely are they doing that, and the same goes for like comments. Very rarely I watch other YouTubers that talk about books or book adjacent things or whatever, and they have like massive comment section with like 20, 30 people commenting, even if it's only like 50 views or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, I get 100 something views and I get like 5 comments, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And I've obviously, as I said, like most of the time, I'm like, yeah, it's just like how things are, and I'm thankful for every single comment. My point is more that if my goal is, and I think it is, I claim it is, and I'm usually fairly convinced that if my goal is to make to start conversations, to have a larger conversation about a specific topic around books or whatever, then my goal is to have other people, like both people that just comment and watch these things, but possibly also like other people that make YouTube videos about similar bookish content, right? To watch my video and react in one way or another. And that is usually not happening. Like some people, say Bretton or Liam are very often commenting on videos, and I very much appreciate that. And there are obviously a couple others that have done this from time to time. I very much appreciate that. But like in a lot of ways, I often feel that what I am doing is happening outside of any other like larger like bookish discourse, when other people that call themselves booktubers or whatever, they react to one another, they talk to one another, they in their comment sections and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not in those circles, and that is partly deliberate because I've sort of stepped away from that. That is true, but it sometimes feels weird. I'm like, why am I still talking about books if nothing changes, because the people that are doing stuff about books are probably not going to watch it and not going to react to it and just like keep going in whatever direction they can go, because they can just ignore me and possibly make fun of me and not take me seriously because I'm a weird person. And that insecurity is, I think, something that I've been wrestling with for all kinds of reasons. I've been wrestling with this, not just around my bookish stuff, but like also other things that go on in my life where I'm like, I feel weirdly sort of like between places, sort of in a lot of ways, and that can be, sometimes a bit frustrating, a bit, emotionally challenging, I think, and so that was certainly something I've been dealing with over the last couple of weeks, and I don't know where that is going. I'll just do the AI video because I feel strongly about it, and I'll just do what I feel strongly about, and if that means slowly shifting out further and further away from like bookish discourse, because it doesn't really seem that anyone cares about my opinions on books, or not so much books, but like bookish content or book adjacent or meta content when it comes to like how we engage with literature or whatever. Then maybe it'll shift into like some other things that I'm interested in at the moment, like for example the AI thing. Who knows? As I like a lot of like insecurities and trying to figure out what to do, but that could also just be the autumn blues, right? Like it is autumn. It has become autumn more or less, and that's like a season of change in a lot of ways that, say, summer is not. And a lot of like sort of like looking back at stuff, and like, I don't know, some people have already like a month ago basically started publishing their like end of year book tag thing, and I'm like, holy shit, is it already the end of the year? Obviously the book tag is not something you do at the end of the year, but like in the last couple of months basically. And I'm like having to realize that, yes, we are basically 3/4 done with the year, is that moment where like, holy shit, did I actually achieve anything this year? Is there anything I've done? Anything good? Anything positive? Anything productive? And that is, that can be kind of hard if you're already struggling in all kinds of ways with mental health and shit. Then yeah, can be a daunting time, autumn in particular. So who knows? Maybe I'll just like rekindle my love for being angry about bookish content by next week, and you'll get like 20 videos of me calling out bad reviews and being generally a pain in the ass. Could also be. Who knows? But yeah, this is just like what I've been dealing with over the last couple of days. As I said, I will be traveling to Keep It True Rising to see some really cool bands that I have never seen live before, and some that I've seen live before a lot, and meet some friends and possibly drink a beer and possibly, shake my head in a somewhat rhythm-adjacent frequency. Who knows? Anyway, let me know what you did last week. What books did you read? What things did you do that were fun? Let me know all of these things. Let me know other things in the comments if you feel like it. I don't know. Yeah, as I said, like subscribe, comment, do those things. Join the Patreon if you feel like it, but you don't have to. Do whatever you want, really. Read good books. Be good people. Thanks, and I'll see you very soon. Cheers.